And welcome everybody to the newest episode of the Amateur Theory Podcast. We got an exciting episode for you today. We're going to have a in-depth discussion about the new Mulan movie, and we're also going to talk a little news. But before that, you might have noticed if you're watching the video that we have a new person here. And so, Adam, do you want to just take a second to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Adam. I'm Braden's brother. That's my qualification. That you just have to. You don't need to be impressive to get on the show, I guess.
Wow, that was a double roast.
Yeah, basically. Well,
no, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited to talk about movies.
Yeah, and then also I'll throw out that Adam is an English teacher, so he might be able to bring, I don't know, some literary analysis, however much that matters to the movie we're going to talk about. So we'll see. But before we jump into Mulan, which we've all seen here, I wanted to talk about a little piece of news that we all read. Wonder Woman, the new Wonder Woman, 1984, is going to be delayed. And the reason it's being delayed is because the Tenet is not as doing as well as I guess the studio heads had kind of hoped it would. So, are you guys? What do you guys think about this? You think this was a good move, or you disappointed, or did you not care about Wonder Woman?
So here's the thing. This is kind of my perspective on this. Whenever there's like a store near me that's closed, and I pass by it, like it's got the store closing sign and everything, I think about, have I been to that store? Because if I haven't, then it's like, okay, it makes sense, right? So in the article, it talks about how Tenet's sales apparently have been pretty disappointing.
Have you seen Tenet? Just curious.
I actually have not. And this is actually the point I'm about to make, is like they're saying in the article that apparently the film industry is going staggering. It's not off to the explosive start that they had hoped this September to be when they were introducing these movies. And I was thinking to myself, have I been to a movie theater? I have not. So makes sense. It just doesn't seem right.
Okay. Yeah. I like to think there's a potential that Tenet, it didn't have a good opening week. Actually, Mulan outperformed it already, which we'll get into a little bit later. But with their direct to streaming model, but I like to think that there is a possibility that Tenet still does well with like a slow trickle, right? Like maybe not everyone wants to see it all at once, but as more and more people see it and they talk about their experience of going to the theaters, we've talked about it on this podcast. It's not crowded theaters. I was the only one when I saw it in a completely empty theater to myself. So if people kind of think like, hey, you know what, maybe it's not as dangerous as I might worry that it might be, that they'll start to come in, and then Tenet could still be the savior of the movie industry in this COVID world. I like to think, but no guarantees.
But if it is that slow trickle down thing, how many, I guess, movie studios will like get excited by that or care? Because they don't want a slow trickle. They want everything within the first week or two.
That is true.
Yeah. Sorry, I was about to say that, like, in good times, they get an explosive start, and then it's a slow trickle with the good start,
Yeah.
My understanding is that Tenet is going to stay in theaters a little bit longer than it would have normally. So they're stretching it out so that it could have a longer period to see how it goes. My question to you guys is, do you think that... So Wonder Woman is coming out in December. It's coming out Christmas Day, I believe. Is that going to be the difference? Is people are going to be like, oh, Christmas, because unlikely we're going to have some kind of vaccine by then. I can't imagine. So, is pushing it to December going to be effective? Is that going to do what they want it to do?
I doubt it. That's just, I don't know, my gut feeling. I don't know if it'll really make that much of a difference.
I actually think it will. And I think there's a reason they chose December, because September is not an exciting time. I mean, like, is there usually a big September like moment for movies, or because I feel like that's the summer, it's the holidays, you know. I don't know if it's going to solve their problem here, but I think it will perform better by being on the holidays.
I mean, maybe it's possible that a lot of people have off on Christmas, and it's possible that maybe people consider, hey, let's go see a movie. It's not impossible. I am not sure what the right move is, honestly. I don't know if they would, do better if they did this direct to streaming thing, or if the theater release still has legs, and we just have to see how that goes. Is anyone here?
Now, will
yeah.
Wonder Woman be a theatrical only release, or do they plan on doing a VOD thing at the same time?
As far as I'm aware, it's only right now that's going to be theatrical. Although, who's to say that might change? I mean, especially if we see, Mulan do, and I think it's doing marginally well. We don't have official numbers on it because streaming we rarely do. But Yahoo Finance put out what they think the Mulan how it was doing, and the numbers looked pretty good. So if Mulan is a success and Tenet is not, that might make more movie studios be like, okay, this direct to VOD model is just a better sell than the theater experience at the moment. In which case, we'd probably see, it's a good chance we'd see a Wonder Woman possibly, or maybe a dual hybrid kind of thing, which is what I think they did in Korea, right, with Mulan.
Yeah, we have a theatrical release here. As for Disney Plus, I don't know how much of a thing that is here. I don't know if Koreans use Disney Plus.
I mean, fair enough. Were either of you interested in Wonder Woman as a movie? Like, are any of you excited to see it?
It's the same director, and that's promising. I thought the first Wonder Woman was pretty good, all told. So, yeah, I mean, I know that DC doesn't have a great film pedigree, but I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I'd watch it. I like the aesthetic that it's been kind of displaying through its advertising.
I'm also a fan of the '80s thing. That's like
that still hasn't gotten old yet, I guess.
Yeah. I feel like we've been on the '80s train for the last 20 years. It's just died.
Is it just a genre now? Is it like fantasy? Like it's
and '80s
'80s fiction?
Maybe, who knows? But all right, I guess we can get into the meat of the episode, Mulan. So before we talk about our thoughts on the movie and everything around that, we should probably address the big controversy, right? In Mulan, in the credits, they thanked. I'm not sure if it was. I don't think it was explicitly thanking the government per se, but it was thanking certain regions, and those regions were the regions where the Uyghur concentration camps are happening. So big no go. It was got a lot of bad press. How did you guys? How do you guys feel about this? Do you think that it was, that Disney should have known that this would have been an issue and then taken steps not to, or is it just kind of like that they couldn't have known better? It's unfortunate, but it's not really their fault.
When did filming start?
I don't know the exact dates. But I mean, presumably they at least had some say in what the credits looked like. Even if they did film there, do they need to thank them in the credits?
I guess not. If I was the company and I was like doing this in a malicious sense or whatever, I'd be thinking like, who's gonna stay and read all of the credits? How boring do you have to be to read everything in the credits, man?
Well, I mean, at least in terms of citations, like not citing correctly it's kind of weird. It's illegal. So like
is a thank you at the end of credits though the same as a citation, like an MLA citation? I don't know if it's the same thing, but
it might be governed by similar laws. You have to credit, at least in academia, at least in school. So
fair enough. That's I doubt that this was driven by a law, or that there's some kind of mandatory they had to thank the region. Whether or not, I think it does probably matter in terms of how egregious this is or not. If Disney was aware of the human rights abuses as they filmed, so if they were not unaware, this was like before the news broke when they were filming there, and then they put it in the credits and didn't think about it. Again, it was poor optics for sure, but maybe more forgivable. If Disney did know and just decided that they just calculated that other people wouldn't care, then that's not very good. I think that Disney probably deserves all the flack it got then. Kind of be my 2 cents.
Disney did something bad? What? You're crazy, man. Get out of here.
Not in the happiest place on earth.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't talked about it on this podcast, but I'm not the biggest Disney as a corporate entity. Not the biggest fan of theirs. I really don't like what they do with copyright laws. This, obviously the concentration camp's much worse than copyright, but it's not always a huge surprise when a big corporation does something that's kind of shitty. Like that's kind of par for the course a little bit.
Yeah. And just to add, if they knew like the concentration camps were happening and they just decided to film there, that sucks. And I'm glad you put it in the credits so we could say you suck.
Also, particularly, I'll just add one more thing on this. Disney positions itself kind of like Nike does as like this kind of woke brand, right? Like we're all about the people, and we are pro diversity, pro feminism, all the checkbox right things. So that makes it even worse, as opposed to like a company like Nestle, where you just assume that they're evil, right? Like Bond villain level kind of stuff going on over there. But like with Disney, at least they pretend to care about these kind of things, so it's extra bad. It looks, not only does it look bad, it also looks hypocritical. So shame on Disney. Amateur Theory Podcast does not condone this action by the Disney Corporation.
They're gonna see this video in 10 years and come after us.
We've marked ourselves. Once Disney rules the world. But okay. Controversy aside, what did you guys? And just like Tenet, I think we'll start with a spoiler-free review, and then we'll get into a more in-depth discussion that'll include spoilers, but we'll give plenty of warning. So, spoiler-free, what did you guys think of the movie?
This is going to be a very milquetoast answer, but it just, like, it was okay. It didn't really elicit a strong reaction from me. Like, I watched it and I didn't think this was like, oh, god awful or anything, but I wasn't also super engaged. It was okay. On a very middle of the road, I guess.
I felt very similar.
I'm gonna say that I liked it a little less than that. And this is why. So I know we were just talking about like, oh, Disney sucks. At the same time, I'm gonna say that I feel a little bit more attached to some of their works than maybe Braden was saying. He said when you said that that you're not the biggest Disney fan.
as a corporate entity. So I want to,
Okay.
okay. The Disney cartoon Mulan is probably my favorite of like the sing along kind of Disney movies.
Same. I love.
I had high hopes for this movie. Like this is actually the very first live action remake I've seen, because none of them looked interesting to me. But this was Mulan. Like this was, I've always loved this movie. I thought it had potential as a live action, more so than like a Lion King did. And so I was actually really excited for this movie. I did think it was disappointing because it wasn't as, what I'd hoped it would be. But I didn't hate it either. I was like mildly entertained the whole way through. But anyway, not to cut you off, I just want to correct the record.
Okay.
I'm not a Disney hater of
for the record keepers. Make sure you like get the correction on there.
Saying you didn't like it.
So I didn't like it, and what I was about to say was that is it fair that these live action movies have to live in the long shadow that the animated films cast? Because the fact that they are remaking it, that they're selling it because of the name, right? They probably wouldn't even make it if the name didn't exist. I think invites comparison between the live action movie and the animated movie. And I'll get into details about why I feel this way when we get into the spoiler section. But for now, my biggest criticism is that they dampened all of the emotions of the movie. I felt like every time that there was a part where that was what should have inspired pathos, should have inspired empathy, like the way they executed it was the opposite of that. Like they were trying to remove the ability to connect and feel with this movie. But yeah, as I said, I'll get into specific examples in the spoiler section.
No, I felt pretty much the same way. I didn't really connect with the movie. It just felt kind of muted. Like almost, you could tell that it was a film put by committee thought. It didn't feel like someone was like, oh, I really want to make Mulan again. I've got these like great ideas. I've got a passion for it. I think I could really do something here. It felt like, a board of people going like, oh, well, what can we remake next? Oh yeah, Mulan. That's a big one.
People. Do you know how many writers there were?
How many?
There were 4 writers. So it's like, and I'm not necessarily saying that these writers are bad, but that means that there's a writer for the test audience edits. That's what that tells me,
Yeah.
It's like 4 writers came up with this script, and it's like, I can't be surprised. That's what happens when you have that many.
When I first heard about Mulan, and then I heard they were going to take it into like a more realistic direction, I was excited that this was going to. One of the reasons this excited me more than like Lion King is because to me this was a chance to make a different movie, like use the same story of Mulan but make a completely different movie, and that's what I wanted. I did not want a shot-for-shot remake of the original. Like that was the opposite of what I wanted.
That's fair enough.
I was with you that it kept on inviting. That had shot-for-shot remake bits in it. Like it would have original bits, and the original bits were all the best bits, in my opinion. It was once you had talked about inviting comparison. The movie kept on doing that over and over. It was like, remember this scene that you liked? Here's a worse version of that. Like it just kept on doing that. And I was like, no, just go back to like the kung fu action because that's what you do well. That's what I want.
That's the new thing that you added.
that was the part I liked.
Man.
That was the part I liked. I liked the action scene. I thought it was well choreographed. But yeah, I'm with you. Like the emotional pull of the original movie was just not there.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm gonna say right here, spoiler warning. Unless you one more thing to add.
Well, I was actually gonna add a positive. That being said, I did kind of like the visuals in this film. Like I thought the set design was really good. There was actually some good cinematography and areas where just the color scheme was pretty interesting. So at times, like, I did, I guess, enjoy what my eyes were seeing. And then I thought, like, well, I could just, like, you could just Google screenshots, though. And not necessarily
that
have
doesn't
to
count
sit through the
for
whole thing.
nothing. I actually agree that I didn't mind that aspect of it. I am gonna another thing to bring up. Apparently, this was so the reviews of this movie were kind of middling. I didn't read them specifically, but I'm assuming they're probably saying a lot of the same stuff we're saying. In China, the reception was actually much worse than it was in America. Like, they really didn't like this movie. So, and I think the whole idea, a lot of the changes were made to pander to the Chinese audience. I think that was like the rationale behind a lot of them, and that fell flat on its face. So, womp. But anyway, from here on out, we're gonna have a clear spoiler warning. You know, if you have not seen the movie and you want to, then watch that before now. But
spoilers for Mulan, in case you're wondering if she's able to save the kingdom or not.
We won't spoil it here. But with all the scenes, there were so many scenes where it was like when she was at the matchmaker and she's like covering up the cricket, and there's some like slapstick humor. It doesn't translate as well into live action as it did in the cartoon. And so like scenes like that, and they would play the same music. Like, they weren't busting out singing like it was, but they would play the music and
like an instrumental version of it, kind of,
right
in the background.
And so like those scenes were just remember the movie. And it was like that and then they kept on peppering those in, and they were all terrible. But what I did like, talking about the visual aspect, so this is Mulan mixed with like a wushu film, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon kind of variety, where people are like walking on walls and doing this crazy kung fu thing. And it does the kung fu thing where everyone knows kung fu in a kung fu movie, which I'm okay with, actually. That's the trope I don't mind. But I thought that's when the movie was at its best, when it was doing some ridiculous, crazy fights, and I wasn't worried too much about the plot or the characters. I just wanted to see some action. That was when this movie excelled.
I'd say those are the best parts too, but there wasn't enough of it. I felt like.
See, I would have cut out all the callback stuff and just made that the movie.
Well, and I feel like this is like even worse in some ways, because if there isn't enough of it, then what you did put in caused problems, in my opinion, and this is the problem, kind of. Okay, so you might recall from the animated film, let's get down to business. And Mulan is like stumbling along, and she isn't very strong, and she doesn't have good balance and stuff like that, right? And an emotional arc of that moment, that's a story in and of itself. Okay, mm-hmm. So she realizes that she has some limitations, but at the end she outsmarts the problem. And that shows her moment. That's the moment where she realizes that she can grow, and then she becomes a good soldier by the end of that, right?
Yeah.
So.
And in this, she's a kung fu master at like 8 years old.
She's a kung fu master. Okay. She's a kung fu master.
She has to hide her power level.
And she has to hide her power. And that's actually the conflict. They changed the conflict that she's so torn up that she's lying, because she's actually a super sick badass. And it's like, and so here's the thing: static characters are not bad, and I feel like often people are like, that character doesn't change, that's a bad character. Sherlock Holmes doesn't change, and he's a classic character. So the thing about that is that if you want to make kind of a static, kind of like just really successful character, then the change needs to come from like the setting, and they kind of attempted that in this film, and it was like awkward. It was so awkward and like not treated well the entire like movie. So like the reason I was bringing this up when you were talking about wushu is that like, so we have her wushu, but like it's it makes the things that happen bad. You know, it's like it's bad that there's training, and then there's a moment where all of a sudden she just like decides to prove that like how super great she is. And then everyone is like falling at her feet. It's like, oh, you're so great, right? And so but we got the wushu because you did that, and it's like the trade-off wasn't worth it, in my opinion. Do you see what I'm saying here? Because I like those kind of movies too. I really liked Crouching Tiger. So it's just that like you needed to go like all the way. You needed to be prepared to do that instead of making other things worse to make the movie that way.
No, I had a very similar criticism that the character arc of Mulan was almost non-existent. She's basically like a perfect person, right? She is all powerful. She is just honest to a fault, to the point where she just can't stand tricking people. So she has become,
Yeah, it's messing with her chi.
Right.
Is that what they literally say in the movie?
And so, like, she's just this total, like, the whole package. She's just amazing in every way. And the one character flaw she has is she just doesn't let people know how awesome she is. Like, she hides it. Show your true colors. And that's just very unsatisfying. Characters are more interesting when they have flaws. Like, that's the most interesting thing about characters, is that they have flaws, and then the ways they work through them. And so, like in the original, in the cartoon, Mulan is not some, combat master. She doesn't, she gets caught that she's a woman. She doesn't just say, I'm a woman, deal with it. It's not how it happened in the movie, but I'm,
that whole sequence, in fact, that sequence to the sequence where she returns to the camp, like shrivels me. Like, it shrivels my soul. I want to talk about that more later.
I think that was my least favorite scene in the movie, is the not when she first reveals that she's a woman, but that like 3 minutes later she comes back and she's like, these people are attacking, and it's like, okay, you know what? I know we just banished you, but I think we're going to put you in command of the army now.
It's even worse than that. It's horrendous. Like, first of all, like, there's this like kind of weird, like, dissonant moment where she keeps asking to be killed. Like, it's like this is kind of awkward. Like, this isn't noble. It's kind of like it's kind of embarrassing, So she So anyway, she comes back and it's like, it's okay to kill me again. She says this again. It's okay to kill me. And then it's like the world's like most embarrassing I am Spartacus scene, where it's just
it did remind me of Spartacus.
But it's not inspiring, just kind of sad, where it's like all of the guys are like, it's like, if this was a guy, you would believe her. I believe her. And then another guy, I believe her. and then like, this is the perfect example of how the movie makes all emotional moments extremely tepid. So it's like, you could imagine kind of like building something akin to an emotional crescendo at this point, but there is no crescendo. This is like totally like awkward. And then at the end, not even like the general's change of heart, which could have been maybe a moment where it's like, okay, I can empathize. I can feel kind of the emotional change that this general's going. Instead, he goes like, you lied and you're really bad. Also, I'm giving you this guy, go save the kingdom. And it's like every single time there was a chance to emotionally connect, they didn't let me. They did not let me. The movie didn't let me. I don't know. It was really awkward, and I didn't like any of it.
Yeah, can we also talk about how they totally nerfed the bad guy?
Oh yeah.
To the point where he wasn't even scary anymore. Like,
Didn't they give him a different name?
They did.
Do you even remember it?
But something con. They changed it. And I remember the original, like, the Huns were the bad guys, and in this one it's a different group that I'd never heard of. But I did Google, and they are a real thing. I just hadn't heard of them. So That's okay. But the thing that was dumb to me was that the bad guy is like, you knew Mulan was going to kick his ass. Like there was no question about it as soon as they fought. And they tried to split up the bad guy into two people this time, so that you had the woman bad guy and the man bad guy, and the woman can do some like magic stuff. And I mean, and then it turned out she wasn't. You made her sympathetic to her, so she wasn't scary either. She wasn't scary because she was like had like this kind of like woman to woman connection with Mulan. So you didn't feel like there was any real tension between them. The tension was between both of them. Were the tension between this main bad guy, and the main bad guy, has this thing where like you killed my father, so now I'm going to. They made the point that he was a coward such a central part of the movie. Like he was constantly doing things, and I think he even acknowledged it at one point. He's like, "I may be cowardly, but you're still going down." And it's like, why would you say that? He's cutting himself down. Man. Like, don't do that.
And think about how much it felt like everything was coming together in the animated film. Like there was the big ceremony. You were in the city. There were crowds of people. Like,
it felt like an escalation of.
It did feel like an escalation because, like, the filmmakers were careful to build on tension, build on sequences that came before. Whereas all these sequences here don't feel that connected. We get to this kind of like barren, kind of like wooden structure, and it doesn't feel like everything came together. It feels like everything fell away. And so it's just, again, like every single time like that we might have felt something, we might have felt excited. Every time we might have felt like, oh, she's in a bad spot. That was taken away. I never got the sense that it was really bad when she left, when they left, like when she was alone, right? I never got a really big sense tension that the kingdom was in danger at the end of the movie because he's over by his wood palisade thing instead of the big city they showed us, It's like we were always taken away from where things were interesting, where there could have been something emotional.
No, there's one scene in the original where like there's like a doll. Do you guys remember the scene I'm talking about?
When they come across the like village that's been burned down?
Yeah. And so like that made you think like these people are dangerous. Like we don't know what they're going to do. But there was nothing like that in this movie. Like again, like they attacked like a town at one point. But even then like all the soldiers, all the bad guy soldiers kind of seemed like they're just afterthoughts. It was really just like the ladies show, the bad guy, the witch. I also thought it was kind of funny how they were, it was a thing where she's like, I'm not really a witch, but then her hands turned into talons. And it's like mixed messaging a little bit. Maybe that's, I don't know. Maybe I'm just
because in the original there's the hawk, but it's an actual hawk that follows Shan Yu around, but in this the hawk is also, I guess, a woman.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that Harry Potter thing where they can transform into animals. Actually, she was going to be in Fantastic Beasts, but then J.K. Rowling started talking a lot, and she's like, "Oh, I gotta get into a new movie," but didn't realize that the controversy this one would start up. So just bad career moves all around.
There's no more heroes.
Should have cornered something other than the hawk transformation niche, I guess.
Yeah. So the day after I watched this new Mulan, I went back and watched the original. And well, first of all, I'm glad I didn't watch the original before I watched the new one, because I know I would have liked the new one a lot less. But then I watched the original and it just supplanted everything in this new one. Like I find it hard to even remember now.
When I'm thinking Mulan, which one are you going to remember?
Yeah.
After you've seen both.
Yeah, I watched the original and I like laughed out loud. There were scenes that like gave me like actual like chills somewhat. It's so well made. And the new one is, yeah, it's very, I think Adam said just tepid. Yeah, it's so like lukewarm and
this PG-13 film feels less dangerous for sure, less affecting in any kind of way. So
no, what I was really hoping for this movie, it's a war movie, right? Like it's fundamentally it's about a war, and so I thought like, oh, they're making it PG-13. It's like this, ancient war that's going to happen. It's going to be like epic. I was expecting this really epic movie with like these giant battles, and it had all Disney's budget behind it, and then it was going to have like this kind of gritty, realistic. I guess I shouldn't have expected that. That's what I was.
I was expecting Lord of the Rings, but with Mulan.
A little bit. That's what my heart of hearts wanted from this movie. And then when I saw the very beginning scene where she's like, an 8-year-old doing some kung fu stuff, I was like, okay, I could get behind like kung fu Mulan. That's something I can do. But
then it just ended up being the same movie. It followed all the same points.
Yeah, I just like this. The two elements did not seem like they fit together. Like there was the Mulan bits and there was the kung fu bits, and it was sort of just someone like just put the kung fu in the Mulan and we'll make it work. and like Adam said, it undercut everything because now Mulan is this perfect super warrior. So there's no, I mean, obviously that Mulan's going to win the end, but I never felt scared for her even once. Like there was never a time when I was like, maybe this is like a worrying moment. Like, no, like she's just awesome. And the bad guy who in the original is like this really scary, and all the soldiers were scary too. Like the whole army was scary. The whole idea of the Huns was like a terrifying concept. They could come to your town. They could like kill you. These guys are just like, they're cowardly and misogynistic. That's their two elements. They really hate that woman and they can't win without her. That's the whole thing. So then you have like this woman who is, like kind of a villain, but also you're supposed to feel sympathetic for her. So she doesn't come off as scary. You'd think that like, the witch with the claws and everything, that you could have made that a scary villain, but they didn't want to do that. They wanted you to feel for her. And so that kind of undercut any kind of menacingness of her. You're supposed to be rooting for her. So then, you're rooting for the two awesome woman warriors who are undefeatable, and they're versing the cowardly misogynist. And it's like, and like, I get that what they wanted to do is they wanted to make the bad guy unlikable, which they succeeded. I mean, I hated him. I really didn't like him at all, but I didn't think that he had a chance from begin with. So
you don't love to hate him. The best villains you love to hate. They're awful, but you like that you're hating them. And this person was just kind of embarrassing. Like it's like you're sharing. I feel kind of secondhand something from you. Yeah.
I just hardly remember the dude. What did he have any lines? I forgot.
The only thing I remember from him was the time when he talked about how cowardly he was, which I still can't get over. And then the other time when he was just being mean to the lady, which was multiple scenes. He's like, "You're my oh, it's your dog, Adam." For a second, I was like, "I don't know you had a dog, JL." Like, okay, wait. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought.
Oh yeah, just the bad guy.
He sucks.
Boring. He's unmemorable.
Yeah, he said like things like, "You're my slave," and "I'm the real ruler here." And even though he said that, because he was such like an ineffective villain, it didn't feel very menacing. Like it was a weird dynamic where what the movie is setting up is that the woman, right, is kind of like a captive of this villain, right? And that she has to do what he says, even though she's the one driving everything. But it was never clear to me why that was. Like, it seems like if she had just wanted to leave, she could have easily beaten any of their soldier guys. So, like, that was not a problem. The one thing was that it was kind of like, where do you go? Because the Chinese don't like me, and then you guys don't like me. And I guess if there's only two groups of people in the world, and maybe that makes sense, and maybe that's what you're supposed to think. But it's, I don't know.
And I think that, because here's the thing. I was mentioning before about static characters and when are they good? Well, I think that static characters are good when you get a perspective on the change that they are bringing about. It's like I was talking about Sherlock Holmes, we get to see through John Watson, and so he he learns things through those interactions, right? So in this movie, there's kind of two, I would say, kind of themes. The first theme is that accept yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Be who you are. That's the whole Phoenix motif. The idea is like the lie is dead. You can all remain, right? And okay, that's fine. I didn't feel any emotions from your narrative, but at least I can recognize it. But then the other theme, which is the second half of the movie after she accepts herself, is the change that I guess that China goes through. Like who changes, who can see you for who you are. There are two characters that, as far as I can tell, that really needed to experience this: the general and the king. Or sorry, not the king. The king is my example of someone that just accepts her, which is fair. That's how the original Mulan did it. Her father. I shouldn't have said the king. Her father. So her father and the general. And like I said before, the general is robbed of that that change. We see it. Instead, he talks about how she sucks, but here's a commander, here's a group of people to do what you say. Then at the very end of the movie, he's like, you don't suck. The whole portion of that movie was not him growing, and we didn't see him change his opinions. He just did at the end. Okay. Same thing with the father. She's like, again, her martyr complex. I have been so terrible to you, Father. I must ask so strongly for forgiveness, like when she's so perfect, right? And then at the end, the father is finally like, I'm the one that should have asked for forgiveness. We didn't see the father change his mind, right? So we didn't get to see that change. So because we didn't get to experience that change, be with that change, it's meaningless to us at the end. And so I thought the theme fell flat. Didn't like it.
Yeah, just everything falling flat on its face in this movie.
Yeah, and then there was like a romance, which was so forgettable we didn't even mention it.
Yeah,
I'm not going to start now.
Yeah.
What else was in this movie? There was the Phoenix thing, which is the replace of Mushu. I don't necessarily think that Mushu should have been in this movie, but Mushu was infinitely more entertaining and fun than the Phoenix. Phoenix wasn't a character, I guess, but
Phoenix just showed up for Mulan to go like, oh yeah, I can believe in myself or whatever.
My old self is dead, and now I'm reborn.
They had they made a big deal of the sword.
Oh yeah,
but again, who cares? No one. I don't think any person who watched it was really beat up. The sword is being destroyed. Whatever.
What a great loss.
I mean, to be fair, if I remember when I was 10 years old, I was into swords and stuff. I thought that was cool. So maybe if you're a 10-year-old and you know all the names of different swords, the sword death will affect you a little bit, perhaps. I don't know.
But even I feel like some franchises do this sort of thing particularly well. In Lord of the Rings, Sting, the sword, it's If that sword got destroyed in the movie, it wouldn't be like, the saddest part of the movie, but I'd feel something. I'd be like, oh no, that's a cool sword and it's gone. This sword,
Okay, yeah. And then there's like the sword of Isildur or whatever that was used to destroy Sauron. It's like, hey, let's just talk about Lord of the Rings. That's
we know the names of those swords. Let's talk
or even like the 90s cartoon Kenshin. He's got a cool sword. He's got there's cool swords. Right. There's cool swords out there. This just wasn't one of them. Yeah.
Well, it's just the fact that it was her dad's sword.
Yeah.
That was it, kind of.
But see, like, there was like a 10-second moment where the dad was like, I care about this sword. Here you go. And then, like, she kind of doesn't really get mentioned again. She uses it, but like, you're not thinking about it. And then it falls into a thing. And then it's a big moment, like, oh, your sword. And I don't know. It felt cheap. This movie should have just gone all out on the kung fu. That's what I think it should have done. You shouldn't have made it so that the bad guy was secretly a good guy, or the worst bad guy ever. Like, you could have had the cool lady, but also made the guy cool. It's like a formidable foe as well, and that would have done a lot to the movie, I think.
I think Mulan. It could have been like a badass right from the beginning. That's okay. Then there's.
But then give her character flaws to work.
Yeah, if the flaw is not her strength, then the flaw needs to be something else. It can't be that she's just so torn up about about her secret that they'll kill her if they find out. It's just. So you could do that, or you could make her totally perfect, and then the arc needs to be someone else's arc. And so Mulan is a character. She's like a character, and then someone else changes because of her. But that was handled even worse, like, in my opinion. Like, they tried to have it both ways in this movie, and that, the changes in the characters, we didn't even see the change. We didn't feel the change at all. So you could have gone that road as well, but then we need a character to kind of change, experience the story with.
Oh, I want to ask, what did you guys think of the acting, like the performances?
Serviceable is the word I would use.
Like the script.
I guess.
The script didn't give you an opportunity to act well, and the events didn't give you an opportunity to act well, and so you didn't act much, and that's okay. You did that.
I just remember, the lead actress. I feel like I can only remember one expression from her face this whole film.
I'm trying to think of other.
Well, I do specifically remember having that expression when she says, "Please kill me." It's okay. I'd rather die. She does that like twice. It's like, oh my god! That whole stretch of film. I'm like looking back and it's like that's what that stretch of film made this movie worse than just like middling. It was just like it was. I felt like.
It was cringe, bro.
Yeah,
Disney posted cringe.
I was uncomfortable with the vibes you're sending me throughout the stretch. It's just, I don't know.
I mean, but what if this movie had not been Mulan, right? You'd seen the same movie, but they just dispensed with the fact that this was like a something related to that.
Of Mulan.
See, to me, that's I'm trying to look through the movie through that lens, and to me, this is a well choreographed action movie that had a bad plot. There's a lot of those movies, and I don't mind a lot of them if the action is cool enough. Now, the action better be cool, because if you have boring action and a boring plot, that's the worst. But if you have cool action, cool sets, cool costumes, you do the aesthetics right, then I can forgive a forgettable kind of dumb plot. That's not the worst thing in the world to me.
Well,
it doesn't make a great movie, but it makes a watchable movie.
Fair enough.
I think I still would have felt fairly like about it.
Same. Genuinely, I don't think I would like it. But it's worse. The comparison makes it worse. And so I give this a film a low score because I don't think we're doing scores. I don't know what our score system is.
We change our score system every week. That's what we do.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Low score. That's a good one.
Low score. This film score is I'd rather have Vladimir Putin give me a purple nurple while singing Hit Me With Your Best Shot than see this movie again.
You heard it here first, folks.
Sounds more unpleasant. So this film is better than that. Than that sequence of events that you described.
All right. Well, this is, I think we've said mostly everything we have to say on this. If you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a like, comment, subscribe. If you're watching this on, we're on Apple Podcast now, so that's new. You can find us there.
Woo-hoo.
Yep. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Google Podcasts. We're all over the place wherever podcasts are. So if you see us, like us, follow us, and until next time.
All right. Until next time, guys.
Bye.